So this week I was working on setting up the API stuff, specifically pulling from Google Places API and rendering it on the activity screen. So as you can see, I have the search feature working. So if I look up like Chinese food, um, you should be able to see different local Chinese food places nearby. If I click on this card right here, it'll have the details of the place. I have the address, the phone number, and the open hours, and it'll also re-render stuff on the map. I was able to kind of get a browse sort of feature where I'm filtering by activity type through the Google Places. Right now, I'm only able to display museums, so but you can kind of see you can browse without even searching. And say if I want to, I don't know, find something, it's like Norton Simon, it'll show up first right here. Click on it, again, title, location in Pasadena, address, phone number, and hours of operation. And yeah, that's about it for the demo. So as for my GitHub check-in, here are the commits that I made on my branch. I used the same branch as last sprint just because I was working on the same thing. It was just continuation. So if you see here, I'm rendering the new title slash addresses on the main screen. So it would be kind of like these two things right here. I'm just switching it to the actual API things. And you can see here is where I am kind of checking to see if I'm going to be updating the re-rendering the list or the lists per se. And here you can see I'm checking to see if I even have any stuff that's loaded in. And I display the activity card, and I yeah, just basically doing the title and address. And this is just a current temporary bug fix. I'm hard coding these three things in there just because for some reason when you first load up the app, it won't load, it won't render. It calls the API when you first open it up, but it won't render what it called. So I'm just putting in placeholders there. But as soon as you type, the weird thing is like, as soon as I erase things from here, it'll show what I want it to show, but it just doesn't show it right on startup. So that's just a temporary fix. I'm going to be fixing that next sprint. Next one, displaying place details on the activity screen. You can see here I'm passing in the Google Place ID into this function that we created last time, and this is where I'm actually calling the Google API, and I'm just basically parsing what I actually want to display, and yeah, so it's basically like displaying the information here and rendering it on there. I think I have the code to, yeah, to actually changing it so it's not hard-coded anymore. Params, hours, blah, blah, blah. Okay, next one, updating map view to have the actual location of activity. Pretty self-explanatory. It was just hard-coded before, but now I'm passing in the latitude and longitude. Yeah, we took out description because the Google Places API doesn't really provide any sort of descriptive things. So we're actually planning on putting reviews in, putting a couple reviews in for the next sprint. Code cleanup, just getting rid of some console statements, nothing too special. Yeah, so in this one, I am handling the browsable and search results. So I'm making two different API calls when I'm doing the browse and the actual search thing. So I'm making sure that our code handles both situations and like it can render it both times on the activity cards. You can see here like for some reason if it's on a browse, the address is called item vicinity, and if it's just like a search, then it's formatted address. It's weird. But I was just able to make it so it handles both situations. Yeah, that's just about it. Just doing some code cleanup there. So I was added just some details right where was it? This is where I'm logging the activities. Right here is a line where I'm checking to see, because not all Google Places have available hours, and so right here I'm just checking to see if it exists, and if it does, I'm joining it together because it was given to me in an array, so I'm just putting it in one big string file or string variable, and then if it's not there, I'm sending the user this warning message. Yeah, getting rid of console logs, self-explanatory, just cleaning up the code. And then I did a little work on develop because I forgot to go on my branch. I actually did this pretty recently, just doing some couple cleanups before the demo, but I thought I would show it anyways. So there was a bug when you first loaded the screen where the entire tab, activity tab, just wouldn't show. So like basically this entire thing wouldn't show unless you started typing things. And so I made sure I handled it to check to see if there's anything loaded in, and if the first, if there's anything in the activity list, and if it's not, then I'm just doing this hard-coded thing, kind of like I explained before. Adding keys, activities, and flat lists. This is just to get rid of a warning that it was giving me every time that we would do a search or kind of browse. It would just say like, oh, you have to have a key. So just making sure that it had the Google Place ID. Adjusting map view, pretty self-explanatory, just zooming out a bit. So on the activity screen, it was like pretty close in. So I wanted to have it be zoomed out so it's not too close and it's easy to kind of see where you are in relation to everything else. Yeah, so last sprint, just like I said, working on the API, where I spent the majority of my time. I think I spent about like 12.5 hours just working on the search and rendering all that activity details for the activity screen. And then this upcoming sprint, I'm going to be continuing on my API stuff, kind of addressing the problem that I faced this last sprint was I'm not able to pull in different filter types and have them be rendered on the screen. So right now I'm only rendering museums as the browse option, but I want to be able to render like movie theaters or like restaurants or different things like that. And so I'm just going to be working on finding a hack around Google Places API rules. And next I'll be working on adjusting the locations in the Google search. So right now it's only handling current locations. So I want it to be able to, if I like type in New York, it'll autocorrect for me and start displaying things in New York rather than things close to me. And yeah, that's about it for this sprint catch up. So thanks.